Welcome to the studio at That Nerd Show. I'm Marcus Blake, and this is your daily nerd news for Monday, January 27th, 2020. Our top story of the day comes from Sundance. This week is the Sundance Film Festival, so most of our movie news will be coming out of the festival. But our top story involves Robert Rodriguez. His thriller, Red 11, and his film school Docu-Series will stream on Tubi. Red 11 is based on Rodriguez's experience in medical research, in a medical research facility to finance his first feature, El Mariachi, which made its world premiere at South by Southwest and went on to play in the director's fortnight selection at Cannes. It is set in a dark and twisted world of legal drug research. College kids turn lab rats to make quick money. The Pic's protagonist, Rob, who is assigned the color and number Red 11, is trying to buy his way out of a huge debt and to the tune of $7,000. But things get surreal when he's not sure if the hospital's really trying to kill him or if it's side effects from the experimental drugs. Red 11 will hit the free ad-supported streaming service in the US, Canada, Mexico this summer. In addition, Robert Rodriguez's film school is the companion piece to Red 11 that explains the director's guerrilla filmmaking process while speaking to filmmakers and entrepreneurs alike on overcoming the perceived limitations of time, budget, and other variables. He was quoted as saying, "I'm thrilled to be in partnership with Tubi to deliver Red 11 and its accompanying film school docuseries free of charge and easily accessible to all audience. I have made both Red 11 and the film school series to celebrate the 25th anniversary of El Mariachi, and the product shows truly actionable methods using my no-crew, micro-budget filmmaking style that will inspire others to make their own films and have their voices be heard. These are both dream projects of mine and entertaining accumulation of ideas and ruminations on the creative process that also highlight the heightened sense of spirituality that comes from dancing with creativity when there is an absence of the usual financial resources. In other words, low-budget film." Red 11 and the story of how Robert made this movie is inspirational to up-and-coming filmmakers, said Adam Lewison, Chief Content Officer of Tubi. And he was also quoted as saying, "As we are thrilled to amplify Robert's message to the next generation of filmmakers as part of our commitment to helping independent films find a world audience." In other news, Christian Rivers will be directing Into Thin Air. It's based on the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Christian Rivers has signed on to direct Into Thin Air, a feature drama that explores the unsolved mystery behind the disappearance of Flight 370. The film is a co-production of Illusion Media Entertainment, KJAM Media, and Altit Media Group, and is being financed by Avi Nikesh. He's the owner of Akia Airline, the second largest in Israel. Rivers is the Oscar-winning visual effects whiz behind Peter Jackson's films King Kong, The Lord of the Rings, and The Hobbit. He also made his feature directorial debut last summer, or last year, with the film Mortal Engines. The film is scripted by Jonas McCord, an Oscar-winning documentarian and investigative journalist, with credits that include Malice and Ask the Dust, and is produced by Oscar winner Barry Osborne, McCord, KJAM, and Dean Atted. Executive producers are Avi Nikesh, Dan Gordon, and Jonathan Sanger. So look for that film to be coming out next year. Also, coming out of Sundance, in an interesting bidding war, Alan Ball's Uncle Frank was acquired by Amazon in a $12 million worldwide deal. Amazon acquired this film, Uncle Frank, the Alan Ball directed drama that has been one of the early buzz sale titles at the 2020 Sundance Film Festival. The deal, as they have said, was worth $12 million for the worldwide rights. This was done in a competitive bidding with several others in the mix. That matches the amount that Searchlight Pictures paid last Sunday for The Night House. Ball, best known for writing American Beauty and creating the series 6 Feet Under and True Blood, wrote this very personal film that stars Paul Bettany, Sophia Lillis, Peter Medici, Steve Zahn, Judy Greer, Margot Martindale, and Stephen Root. Bettany will play the title character, a revered NYU professor who takes his 18-year-old niece, played by Sophia Lillis, a student at the school, on a road trip home to Creeksville, South Carolina to bury his father. Frank dreads the journey because he and his father have been estranged the moment the father discovered his son was gay. Their unexpected journey on the road they're unexpectedly joined on the road trip by Frank's lover, Walid. The drama is about family forgiveness and the challenges of accepting who you are, especially in the South in 1973. Bettany's performances is among the best of his career, according to sources. And now we turn our attention to horror movie news. Stephen Lang, Keith David, and Chris Galust joined the Guy Pearce film, which is an exorcism horror film called The Seventh Day. The cast has been rounded out on The Seventh Day, the horror pick starring Guy Pearce and Mexican actor Vadir Derbez, in the story of the renowned exorcist who teams up with a rookie priest for his first day of training. And of course, joining them are Stephen Lang, Keith David, Chris Galust, and Robert Bartlett and Brady Genis. Lang will co-star as a serious and deeply pious Archbishop of the Catholic Diocese of New Orleans. David will portray Father Louis, a mentor to Father Peter, played by Guy Pearce in his youth. Bartlett is set to portray Helen, a New Orleans social worker. Gulse will play a young father named Peter, and Genis will portray Charlie Garreau, a young boy accused of a heinous crime while allegedly under the influence of demonic possession. The project is shooting next month in Dallas and New Orleans, and Justin P. Lang is directing from his own script, which is his second feature. Producers are Dallas Sonier and Amanda Presmick for Sin State and Fangoria. Kimberly Huang and Chelsea Davenport are also producing. Voltage bordered international sales on the project ahead of last year's AFM, and Sin State retains domestic rights. That is what's going on in movie and TV news. As we get more news coming out of Sundance Film Festival, we will definitely let you know. And now we turn our attention to gaming news. Metro Exodus, the second of the DLC, is coming in early February. It is Sam's story. We're finally getting the hotly anticipated second and final Metro Exodus DLC. Next month, it is titled Sam's Story. It'll drop on February 11th for Xbox One, PS4, PC, and Stadia, and it is reportedly a sandbox survival expansion. In the expansion, players will help Sam journey through the Valdisstock and return back to the U.S., where he hopes to find his family alive. Keep in mind, you should finish Metro Exodus before getting into the DLC, and maybe skip reading the summary of the expansion below. But we're going to let you know about it anyway, so there may be a few spoilers if you haven't played the game, just to give you fair warning. The story broke on Twitter, which bills Sam's story as the end of the journey. It's likely the last expansion for Metro Exodus, which came out last February, February of 2019. So you'll want to get your hands on it if you can. Just a quick tidbit, you can find it on sale at GameStops for a fairly good price, and it is actually on the Xbox Game Pass along with the previous Metro games. According to the official post announcing the DLC, Sam is determined to head back to the U.S. and find his family after discovering the Metro tunnels are not the only way of life in the ravaged world. You'll guide Sam away from the Aurora and towards Volsicic's tsunami-ravaged harbors, ruined industrial buildings, and crumbling residential districts. Expect tricky surroundings that will test Sam's training and tactics. As of now, there's no trailer or price for Sam's story, but the Metro Exodus expansion pass is only $25, which will get you the previously released expansion, The Two Colonels, and the upcoming one as well. The Two Colonels, which tells the story of Colonel Miller retracting Colonel Kelblikov's final steps, can be bought on its own for only $7.99. So barring any major difference in length, Sam's story will likely cost $7.99. And The other piece of gaming news that we have is the game that's coming out tomorrow, Journey to a Savage Planet. It is only $29.99 at retail. It's not a huge game, but we will definitely let you know more about it as we play it and do one of our new gameplay reviews on Twitch or YouTube. All right, now we turn our attention to science news. As I mentioned last week when we started doing daily news, we will always try to give you at least one piece of news within the world of science because we are nerds. So, here is your science news for the day. Sea level rise could reshape the United States, trigger migration inland. Now, before you start thinking this is a plot to Waterworld, let us further explain what this really means. So I'm going to read to you the news that came from Science Daily this week. When Hurricane Harvey slammed into Texas in 2017, a displaced residents flocked inland trying to rebuild their lives in the disaster's aftermath. Within decades, the same thing could happen at a much larger scale due to rising sea levels, says a new study led by the USC Computer Science Assistant Professor Bistra Delkina. The study published in PLOS 1 on January 22nd, it is the first to use the machine learning to project migration patterns resulting from sea level rise. The researchers found the impact of rising oceans will ripple across the country beyond coastal areas at risk of flooding as affected people move inland. In the U.S. alone, 13 million people could be forced to relocate due to rising sea levels by 2100. As a result, cities throughout the country will grapple with new populations. Effects could include more competition for jobs, increased housing prices, and more pressure on infrastructure networks. They were quoted as saying that sea level rise will affect every country in the U.S., including inland areas. They also went on to say that we hope this research will empower urban planners and local decision makers to prepare to accept populations displaced by sea level rises. Our findings indicate that everybody should care about sea level rises, whether they live on the coast or not. According to the research team, the most popular relocation choices will include landlocked cities such as Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, Denver, and Las Vegas. The model also predicts suburban and rural areas in the Midwest that will experience disproportionately large influxes of people relative to their smaller location populations. Predicting relocation areas. Sea level rise is caused primarily by two factors related to global warming. Added water from melting ice sheets and glaciers and the expansion of seawater as it warms. Within just a few decades, hundreds of thousands of homes in the U.S. coast will be flooded. In fact, by the end of the century, 6 feet of ocean level seas will rise. Would we redraw the coastline of southern Florida, parts of North Carolina, Virginia, and most of Boston and New Orleans. To project the trajectory of sea level rise migrations, research took existing projections of rising sea levels and combined this with population projections. They were quoted as saying, we talk about rising sea levels, but the effects go much further than that, those directly affected on the coast. Said Caleb Robinson, a visiting doctoral researcher from Georgia Tech and advised by Delkina and the study's first author. We wanted to look not only at who would be displaced, but also where they would go. Delkina and Robinson worked with co-author Juan Moreno Cruz, an economist and professor of the University of Waterloo. As expected, the researchers found the greatest effects of sea level rise migration will be felt by inland areas immediately adjacent to the coast, as well as urban areas in the southeast U.S. But their model also showed more incoming migrants to Houston and Dallas than previous studies, which flagged Austin as the top destination for climate migrants from the southeastern coast. This result notes that researchers shows that the population movement under climate change will not necessarily follow pre-established patterns. In other words, it's not business as usual. Sea level rise could also reroute people relocating from unaffected areas or counties surrounding Los Angeles. In particular, they could see tens of thousands of migrants whose preferred coastal destinations are now flooded, choosing alternative destinations. But that's a little bit about the study that is showing the current trend in sea levels rising. Now, again, we're giving you science news just to inform you. We're not here to scare you or make you think that you need to do something immediately. As stated in this study, most of what they are projecting is by the end of this century. But it is something to be concerned about as we deal with the effects of global warming. And that is what's going on in movie, film, game, and science news. So now we turn to our question of the day. We will never report rumors as news. There are always lots of rumors that go around and things that get quoted on Reddit or Twitter. But until it is officially being confirmed, it is not news. However, with that said, we can always talk about rumors in regards to our discussion question of the day. And our discussion question today is about Star Wars, mainly about the TV show Star Wars Rebels. It has been rumored more than for a while and more than once. Even Dave Filoni, the creator of the series, has dropped some hints on Twitter. So we asked the question, do we need a sequel to Star Wars Rebels? Especially with the last and final season of Star Wars The Clone Wars coming out next month on Disney+. So let us dive into this question for just a moment. After 4 years of a great series where we saw the main protagonist, Ezra Bridger, basically become a Jedi, and we got to see what happened to Ahsoka Tano, and what happened to her after she left the Jedi Order as being part of the beginning of the rebellion. It introduced legacy characters such as Lando Calrissian and a very young Princess Leia, which was great. But the show kind of ended on a mystery, and here are some spoilers if you have not seen the series, but it ended with Ahsoka and Ezra going into what is referred to as the netherworld of the Force. We don't know what happened to them. We don't know if they died. We don't know anything. The only hint that we had is that they weren't around by the time we got to the next trilogy with Star Wars and Rey, but we did hear their voices when Rey was hearing the voices of all the Jedi from the Star Wars universe, giving her words of inspiration. And again, that's a bit of a spoiler at the end of Rise of Skywalker, so if you haven't seen it, we do apologize. But the rumor really came about because people wanted to know what happened to these characters. There were a lot of rumors that they were going to end up in the Rise of Skywalker somehow. And they did, but not in any kind of, a Force Ghost form or CGI or anything like that. We just simply heard their voices. But I think it's important that we do ask this question of whether we need a sequel to Star Wars Rebels. And I would say yes. I say that there is so much that we don't know about what happened to these characters. Even if they did just one more season, I think we should get some answers about two of the most beloved characters in the Star Wars universe. It was great to have Ahsoka come back and basically help the rebellion and also help shepherd in a young Jedi. And to see her relationship with Kanan, a Padawan who basically went into hiding after the Order of 66. It was great to see her confront her old master or teacher when she faced off against Darth Vader in Season 2 and finally realized what truly happened to Anakin. But again, there's too many questions that are unanswered, and I feel like there's still some more stories to tell with these characters. What happened to them? Especially since that we still don't know all that much that happened in the 30 years between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. And while the comics are starting to explore this a little bit more, and there's a Luke Skywalker animated series in the works to help explain what happened with him before he went into hiding and what he was doing after Return of the Jedi to help rebuild the Jedi Order. Isn't it just as important to have a series to explain what happened to these two characters, Ahsoka and Ezra? Did they know Luke Skywalker? Did they have adventures together? Okay, did Ahsoka help bridge the gap between Anakin and Luke? There's just too many questions unanswered. So whether it's a rumor today and whether it'll be confirmed later on, my personal opinion here on the Daily Nerd News Show, let's get a sequel. Put it on Disney Plus. Okay? We would love to see what happened to these characters and see how they connect. Or maybe we just know more about these characters in an animated Luke Skywalker series. But let's help bridge the gap and tell these stories, especially with the popularity of Disney Plus, and considering that they have done so well with series like The Clone Wars or the Star Wars Rebels, The Mandalorian. We don't necessarily need a movie. We can have great television right here, and all for $6.99 a month. So yes, let it be more than just a rumor. Let's get a sequel. Let's find out what happened to these characters. Thank you for watching the Daily Nerd News. I'm Marcus Blake with That Nerd Show. Until the next time, goodbye.